Moving on. You guys are asking hard questions, man. Stuff that I don't have answers to. My question, what would be your ideal group for making an anime, as in writer, director, animation studio, musician, etc.? I've mentioned it before, but my favorite writer director combo is Takashi and Enokido. Takashi and Enokido. So I really like their stuff. Animation studio, they do all their stuff at Bones. I'm fine with Bones. Bones is cool. Musician, they usually, I don't know, the musician they had, honestly, I'm just recreating Star Driver right now. Whatever his name was that worked with them on Star Driver was really good, but I feel like a lot of that was just due to the sound directing and how they used the music so well to tie in with the scenes, so it's kind of cheating a little. I still really like Goro Taniguchi's stuff. Oh god, please tell me his name's Goro Taniguchi. I'm so bad at remembering names. He's the dude who did the music most recently for Rakudai Hishino Cavalry. He was the reason I picked up the show in the first place, because I was like, holy shit, he's on music. Which was a good soundtrack. So I'd do that. It's funny, because a lot of people mention, they're like, oh, you know, like the really popular musician currently is Hiroyuki Sawano. And yeah, he puts up some pretty good stuff, but I think my favorite soundtrack that Hiroyuki Sawano's done is the Xenoblade Chronicles X soundtrack. And even then, I don't like everything on that soundtrack. I just like a few pieces here and there. Like, oh my god, my favorite song on that, or track on that soundtrack is I don't remember if the area is called Sylvanus or Sylvarius or something like that. It's the really Polleny area, and something that was really cool is all the areas in the game had a daytime track and a nighttime track. And I don't remember if it was the daytime track or the nighttime track, although I think I liked both, but one of them was the best song in the game. Holy shit. I think it was the nighttime one for Sylvarius, or whatever the fuck it's called. Sylvarius sounds like a World of Warcraft area. Whatever the Polleny area in that game is called. Oh my god, that track was so good. But yeah, I actually like Goro Taniguchi more than, please, for the love of God, let Goro Taniguchi be his name, or I'm gonna be so embarrassed. I could look it up right now, but I don't want to waste time. I actually like him more than Hiroyuki Sawano. He does awesome stuff. So I guess that would be the one exception. Like, everyone who worked on Star Driver except get Toru Taniguchi on music. Like, that'd be good. So, basically, I just want them to make a Star Driver 2.0, which was supposed to be Captain Earth, but then it wasn't. Anyways, next question. Do you have a Skype? No, I don't like Skype. It is not optimized very well, like, at all. Like, whenever I run Skype, like, it always uses up like 30% of my CPU, and it's gross. It's not great. You don't even really need Skype anymore now that Discord is out, which uses like nowhere near the amount of CPU usage, and you have IRC like functionality too, and you can post images. Like, whenever it says something, you can like just upload an image to the chat room, and it's like a reaction image, and it's great. The answer is no, I don't have a Skype. So this question is Death Note or Bakuman? And it's, well, I get why you'd ask that, because same team, but it's just kind of weird because they're also like completely different shows and series. Death Note's probably better, both in a general entertainment sense and even a writing sense. But Bakuman's good for what it is. I actually read the Bakuman manga as it came out. Like, I actually liked it. It's just, if I had to make a call between the two, I'd say Death Note probably. Next question. Amongst animated originals, faithful adaptations, or works from other media and creative adaptations of the latter, in what order do they make for the best anime? Reasons are welcome. Again, it's not those in and of themselves that decide whether a show is good or not. It's just that good shows happen to come from whatever source they are, and then, you know, it decides like, oh, right now animated original shows are the best, you know? Like, it's kind of like the genres and how good shows decide the good genres. good shows as they are now decide the best whatever. Like, everyone's ragging on light novels right now, even though Durarara is a light novel. Bakuman is a light novel. There are other light novels that a lot of people like too, but I can't think of them, any of them right now. But there are plenty of shows that are based from light novels that people like a lot, and they just happen to be forgotten, you know? Of course, people then are like, oh, no, I mean, like, the generic light novels, you know, where people, like, you know, go to Magic High School, you know? And it's like, well, that still doesn't decide whether they're going to be good or bad. I feel like I'm going on a bit of a tangent, which is like, oh, what a shocker. They don't make any order for the best anime. The source material, or lack of source material, does not decide whether a show's going to be good or bad. So, it's a bit of a unanswerable question, because there really isn't an answer. There is no order that make for the best anime. Like, the only way to grade it would be looking at how many of each of those that I like, and then putting them on, like, a scale of, like, how many from each source I like, and then categorizing them that way. Like, that'd be the only way to do it. And even then, like I said, it wouldn't necessarily make that source the best. It would just mean that that happens to have the most shows at this point in time. Like, that could change at any point, you know? So it's always just pointless whenever people say that they don't want to watch something because it's generic. It's like, who cares? Like, repeated story elements don't really matter to me. Like, the only time, like, a repeated story element has ever taken me out of a show is when it's, like, levels of, like, plagiarism. And then it's like, I've seen this show before. But otherwise, like, the small differences in characters, character design even, dialogue with their choice of words, character relationships, interactions, the art as far as, like, the background music and just general art, the music, the directing, you know, the general plot writing, the pacing. Like, there's so many different things that can make shows different from each other, even with similar plot elements. Like, as much as I'm probably going to keep ragging on, along with Lewis in the podcast about how similar Kabaneri is to Titan, like, I'm not going to drop it because I'm like, oh, this is just Titan again. Like, I can see the differences. Like, the similarities are glaringly obvious on the one hand, but it's also doing its own stuff that's very easy to see. So, will I ever not go on tangents? No. No, I will not. Or, I mean, yes, I will. I will always go on tangents. Wait, no. No, I will not go on. I'm confusing myself. Next question. What is your opinion on other anime YouTuber, specifically analytical anime YouTuber like Digibro? And then you voted for Joe. Everyone's fine for the most part. Like, I've said it before, like, there, you know, obviously there's plenty of reviewers that I agree with on certain shows, I disagree with on other shows, but generally, as far as, like, deciding whether I like people or not, it's, well, the way I decide whether I like their content is whether I like their arguments for whether they like or dislike something. Like, that's something that's I've greatly benefited from being more critical rather than just a general viewer, is I no longer get mad when people say they don't like things I like, or that they like things that I don't like. Like, that in and of itself doesn't bother me. What I want are their reasons for why they like or dislike something, and then I decide whether I personally think those reasons are well reasoned or not. Like, whether they have a solid basis or not. Like, I've mentioned it before, I think in the last Q&A, like my 1,000 subscriber one, but for basically every show I review that I like or dislike, I could do a review arguing the exact opposite opinion decently well. Like, even Clannad. Like, I did a bit of that in the first 7 minutes of the Afterstory review, but I could argue the positives of Clannad if I wanted to, and make a positive review out of it. Like, it's something I can do with almost everything. The exceptions being Oreimo and Mahoka. Like, those are the only shows I could not argue the opposite opinion for, because I just cannot see any positives in them. I just can't. Like, maybe one or two things, but that's it. Like, nothing to make, like, a substantial argument. So, obviously, like, people's opinions in and of themselves don't really matter to me. It's their reasons for why they dislike or dislike the things that they do that interest me. So that's what decides whether I like their content or not. The second thing is that whether I care, like, whether I like them as a person or not, which is pretty self-explanatory. Do I think they're a good person? It's a pretty simple question. And I would say yes, like the vast majority of people in the anime community are good people. Like, I don't have problems with them at all. They're cool. I like them a lot. It's luckily a very solid community. There's only like extremely rare exceptions of shitty people in the community. Like, and even, let me put it this way, even if I don't like your content, like I kind of mentioned earlier, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Garkata's content, and except now he's doing the spoiler room review stuff, which I think is actually pretty cool, and I'm gonna like a lot. But just because I didn't like his content doesn't mean I didn't like him as a person. Garkata's a really cool dude. Like, I would never, say he's an awful person or anything like that, because he's not. He's cool. Luckily, then there's also people who are shitty people and shitty critics. So then it's very easy to be like, fuck those people. But to answer your question, you specifically asked about Digiro. Yeah, Digiro's fine. He seems like a fine person. It's funny because there's actually a lot of things I don't agree with Digi on. There's actually some stuff I don't think he argues that well either. I remember, the one example that comes to mind was I remember watching his Psycho-Pass Season 1 versus Season 2, like, opening episode video. And I feel like he was really... How do I word this? I felt like he was stretching it a lot. As far as, like, things that, like, the first season... Or, like, as far as things that whether they mattered or not, I guess, for the first episodes of each. It's funny, because I actually agreed with him. I don't like Psycho-Pass Season 2 at all, and I think Season 1's pretty good. But I feel like his arguments just were weird. Like, I didn't feel like they had the best basis. But that was just my opinion. So I've actually disagreed with him on a few things. But then I've also really agreed with him on a lot of stuff. Like, he did the whole thing about how Rakudai, Kishi no Cavalry is fucking fantastic. Especially when compared, or I guess for him, mainly when compared to Asterisk. And I agree with that. I think, even after watching the first episode, I knew I was going to like Rakudai a lot more than Asterisk, and his 2 videos talking about the positives of Rakudai are some of my favorite stuff he's put out, because, like, it's like we're the same fucking person there. Like, I'd argue literally the same things. In fact, he covered stuff that I probably wouldn't have even thought of, that I thought was really cool that he noticed. That's why I never let opinions like that get to me. Like if I looked at his Psycho-Pass Season 1 and Season 2 Episode 1 comparison, I was just like, well, I don't really agree with this, and I stopped watching him, I wouldn't have seen the Rakudai review, where I thought it was pretty interesting. Where am I even going with this? I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. I'm going so off topic. Yeah, Digi's a cool dude. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. That's all I really need to say. Moving on. Question. What is your one favorite piece of fiction after looking through every anime, book, visual novel, manga, TV show, movie, etc. you've ever completed, and why? Well, as I've said repeatedly, well, I guess you're asking about book, visual novel, manga, TV show, movie, all kinds of things, so that actually complicates it a lot. But I'd probably still say Shanna. Shanna was great. I was always worried, because Shagun or Shanna is what got me into, like, watching anime more regularly on, like, a general basis. Like, that's how it tends to go for a lot of people, is they kind of, like, watch anime here and there, but then they watch that one show that just draws them in and they have to watch a bunch. Shakugan no Shana was that show for me. And I was always worried, as the years went by and I got more critical, that the show wouldn't hold up. I was terrified that it would not hold up. I was so scared to rewatch the show. And, like, a year or two ago, I rewatched the show. And it held up, and I was so happy. In fact, I think I like Shanna even more now than I did when I first watched it. Like, I was so happy that happened. Ugh, I would have been terrified. I would have been so sad if that hadn't been the case. So I would say Shanna, although Umineko is a very close second as far as the visual novel. It's very... How do I put this? Umineko definitely wins in the uniqueness factor, although to be fair, when Shanna first came out, it was... I'm not gonna say unique, but it was, compared to nowadays, if it came out, it was pretty fucking unique back when it did. But what was I saying? This happens too, where I'm just like talking about something and then half a second goes by and then my memory just like wipes itself and I'm like, what the fuck was I even talking about? But yeah, Umineko is probably a bit more unique even regardless, but uniqueness has never been something I've considered to be really important at all. Like, uniqueness doesn't really mean anything. You know, like, something can be as unique as it wants. That doesn't mean anything, because if you watch it a couple years down the line where it's no longer unique, who cares? You know? Like, uniqueness is like one of the, maybe the only thing that doesn't stand the test of time. You can say, oh my god, this is so unique, but then you watch it, 5 years later when it's no longer unique and you're like, man, that actually sucked, Like, you can't let the newness of something cloud your vision whether you like something or not. And I'm not saying the uniqueness is the only thing good about Umineko. I'm just saying that that's like an additional factor it has going for it right now. Which is why I'd say Shanna's probably, I prefer it over it. But Umineko is still a very close second. And then what's your second question? Are you sexually attracted to lollies? Not really. Next question. What are the top 3 things you look for in an anime to determine whether or not you like it? Nothing, really. Like, I feel like I've been going over this already, but I don't really actively look for things in shows as I watch them. They just sort of happen, Like, I watch a show, and then as it does stuff, I decide whether I like the things it's doing or not, and then that's how it goes. Like, I don't have a basis where I'm like, okay, I need the show to do this, 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 and it's good. And maybe going back to that anime reviewer question about stuff in the community is like, maybe that's something I could tie in. Maybe that's a thing that a lot of reviewers do, because it might explain some things, is that people like have a check mark list where they want specific things from shows. And that's not how I really do stuff. I don't look for specific things when I do shows. Like, I just want things to be told well and presented well. And that doesn't come down to like a check mark list other than did it do it well, which is a very open-ended, question of whether it did it well or not, Like, it's not like it's like, oh, it needs a twin tail character and then you check it off. Like, it's not that kind of checklist, Well, I don't really have a checklist at all, so I'm not saying why it's that kind of checklist. I feel like when I answer these questions, I just go off in like slight tangents and then I confuse myself because I forget what the original question is. And so I'm trying to like answer the original question, but I've already forgotten what it was. So then I just sort of keep talking about whatever I was talking about and hope that I go back on track, even though I can't remember what the question was. Anyways, I don't really look for things in shows as I watch them. I just sort of watch them, and then if I like them or not, I like them or not. Like, it doesn't translate into like a checklist, really. It's just, did it do the thing it was trying to do well or not? That's really it. Moving on. What anime did you watch that you finished and then immediately forgot everything about it? Well, that's a bit of a difficult question to answer for perhaps obvious reasons. Because if I finish a show and then immediately forgot everything about it, I wouldn't remember what the show was. I don't know. And not just for the obvious reason I pointed out. I don't know. Like, I can't think right now and be like, let me just remember a show that I forgot everything about. Shows being forgettable. I don't know. I don't know. Like, maybe I did answer that question by that comment. Maybe that did actually count. I don't know. If I watched a show and then immediately forgot everything about it, I wouldn't fucking know. But I will say, honestly, I forget a lot of things about a lot of shows as I watch them. Like, even as I'm currently watching them, because that's how my memory works, is I watch the show, and I know, like, everything I've watched about it so far, and then when the episode ends and I move on to the next show, that last show I just watched, my memory's gone of it. Like, I don't really think about it other than, like, the general plot synopsis of whatever's going on. That's it. Like, the only thing I remember about it. Like, I don't remember the character names. I don't even remember the events of the episode for the most part. And then when I watch the next episode when that airs, my memory comes back. Like, that's just how my memory works. It's like a fucking NES cartridge, Like, time to load in the next show's memories. Like that, So, I can't really answer the question. Do you ever plan to go to Japan for a few weeks as a tourist? Probably eventually. I want to learn the language first because although I've heard that in big tourist areas, like obviously good chunks of Tokyo and stuff like that, it's the layout of the city and like signs and shit like that are written in Japanese and English for like keeping tourists in mind. So as far as like general tourist areas, like big city locations, like it's really easy to get around as a tourist without knowing the language. But if you go anywhere outside of that, like any possible like rural like areas, like there's no English at all. And a lot of the people aren't going to speak it. And you're totally fucked if you don't know Japanese. So, you know, it'd be nice to know the language in case, like maybe I want to, you know, check out, you know, some like more, a more rural like town or something, you know? I need to know at least some of the language to get by. So I want to learn language first before I go to Japan. And that's going to take quite a while. So it'll be a while before I go to visit Japan. But I would like to. It would be cool to check it out. Next question. Do you ever still watch hentai? Yes. And what anime soundtrack made you melt inside? That's a hard question because it's kind of like... It's almost like a two-parter. Like, what soundtrack can I watch at any point in time? And I'm like, ugh, it feels so good listening to the soundtrack. But then there's also soundtracks where in the moment of the show, how it's used is like, oh, and obviously I'm talking about Star Trek. I'm talking about like, still to this day, Star Trek has the best use of its soundtrack in show I've ever seen. Like, the way that I mention all the time, the way scenes like swell and calm with the music is fucking insane. Like, it's not every scene in the show, but the more dramatic scenes, especially, like, it's lined up, like, fucking perfectly. Like, it's incredible how they managed to pull that off. It's so good. As far as, like, listening on its own time, I don't know. I guess I could go with the generic Toradora soundtrack, because that tends to be emotional for some of its tracks. Like, obviously, well, what's it called? Lost My Pieces? Like, that's a general fan favorite. I don't know outside of that. Like, honestly, I don't listen to many anime soundtracks on their own unless I like am like on a trip somewhere. So I don't really actively listen to soundtracks. It's something I should really do more often. Just listen to soundtracks in general as I do stuff. Definitely something I should work on. But yeah, as far as like in show, I can definitely say Star Driver. As far as outside of the show, I don't know. Although honestly, outside of the show, Star Driver's got some pretty fucking great tracks too. But I feel like it's partially because I'm remembering the scenes where the track played. Which is how some tracks get elevated, is because when you listen to them, you remember that scene from the show, so you're like, oh, and then someone who hasn't seen the show is just like, it's an okay song. That's how you get the difference. Moving on. Next question. Are you involved in politics to the point where you think either Trump or Sanders, and when the presidential election? I guess you're asking if Trump or Sanders will win? No, Hillary's gonna win. And, like, I'm not saying that, like, it's my opinion of, like, I want her to win, although I wouldn't mind it. It's just, like, a fact. Like, Sanders at this point has, like, almost no chance of getting the primary nomination, so he's out, which means Clinton's got the Democratic nomination. And Trump's almost a shoo-in at this point for the Republican one, and he divides the party way too much for them to ever get behind him. So Clinton's gonna be the next president. Like, it's that simple. Like, if the fucking impossible happens and, like, the moons... Well, I guess the moons wouldn't align. The moons would, like, perfectly like not align, like they'd be so cracked and divided among each other that they're like not aligned in any sense of the word, like the most opposite of aligned they can be, and Trump manages to win, I'm fucking out. I mean, I think a lot of people would be out in that case, like, and a lot of people always mention, you know, oh, presidents don't really have that much power, they're largely a figurehead, which is true, but there's one part where presidents play a pretty fucking huge role. Wanna guess where that is? Foreign relations. The president is the face of the country. Your leader is the face of your country for almost everywhere. How would it feel for Trump to be the face of the country? Oh, God. We'd be fucked. We'd be so screwed. Everyone would hate us. Oh, God. It'd be a nightmare. Like, say what you want. Like, I'm very democratic. I would be fine with literally any other Republican win. Like, if Ted Cruz managed to somehow get in as primary nomination and won, I wouldn't be like, I'm out of this country. Like, there'd be some laws coming out that I'd be like, not my thing. This isn't too good. But at least crews wouldn't fuck our public relations with a good chunk of countries. Like, obviously, there's a couple where it'd be the case, but we'd at least not be as fucked as Trump did. I don't want this to get too political, although I think that's already too late. But I feel like fuck Trump isn't that political of a statement, since pretty much everyone can get behind that. Anyways, next question. When you watched Death Note, did you think it was timeless with having a sort of unique character in Light Yagami that could literally happen to anyone? Wait, what? Did you think it was timeless with having a sort of unique character in Light Yagami that could literally happen to anyone? Is that a contradiction? I don't think Light Yagami's that much of a unique protagonist, mainly because the obvious comparison would be Lelouch. Obviously, he can't kill people with a notebook, but that's not what defines Light as a character, so... like, I feel like, I'd feel like the more interesting character in and of themselves is Lelouch. But as far as what shows do with the character, they're very close, and it's hard to say which would be better. Because I've mentioned it before, but the reason I like Death Note so much, and even am fine with the last third of the show while other people aren't, is that I view Death Note as a character study. So in like viewing it in that sense, it makes the last third of Death Note work really well, which is something I should probably do a video on at some point. So it works in that regard of how it uses his character. But I would say, like, as far as in and of the characters themselves, I would say that Lelouch is the more interesting character. Moving on. Question. Who were your main inspirations for your YouTube channel? I didn't really have one. I kind of answered this question before, but I just felt like reaching a bigger audience, and I was like, well, I could just record my videos and put them up. Which I suppose also explains why my video editing's so shit, because I come from a blogging background. So I'm just like, well, let's record my blog posts and put them on YouTube. So quite a long ways to go before I have any decent visual editing talent. And then you had recommendations. So next question. What do you think about the future of traditional animation now that Studio Ghibli has stopped producing films? I don't think that's true. I'm pretty sure Ghibli's still doing stuff. It's just that Miyazaki's gone. Didn't he actually come back and he's doing some random, like, CG movie with someone or something? I don't fucking know. But I guess that would not tie in with traditional animation, but, I'm pretty sure Ghibli's still doing movies. It's just that Miyazaki's gone. So, I could be wrong, but, I think that's the case. But, assuming you were correct and they aren't doing movies anymore, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I actually have not been the biggest fan of Ghibli ever. Like, their stuff's, pretty solid. It's just, like, I don't have the incredibly loving relationship that most people have with them. Like, I think the favorite thing of Ghibli's that they've put out is the video game, Ni no Kuni. Hell yeah, Ni no Kuni 2. Super excited for that. Like, that's probably my favorite thing Ghibli's put out, and that was largely Level E. Like, Ghibli just sort of kind of wrote a script for it, and that was it. So, yeah. I don't know. Like, I guess on a visual front, it'll be kind of a shame, but I've never cared that much about traditional animation versus, digital animation and stuff like that. So, like, honestly, like, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, a lot of the time, I still can't tell the difference. Like... It's still hard for me to tell. Like, that's how much I still need to work on recognizing visual stuff. I think I answered the question? Next question. Have you been health-wise? Feel free to be unspecific as you want, but I was just wondering, has you been feeling any better ever since you were feeling several months ago? Yeah, that was a thing along... How long has it been? 2 years now? Maybe even more than 2 years. It's been quite a while. Still going on, but it's one of those things where, like, as it goes on, you just sort of, like, learn how to live with it, and you get used to it, and you learn what to do to, like, mitigate it. Like, I remember when it first started, I was in so much pain sometimes, it was awful. Like, it was hard to get anything done at all. Like, it sucked. And now it's at the point where, like, it still occasionally happens, but I've largely learned, just unconsciously what to do to mitigate chances of that happening. So, Doing a lot better, definitely. I wish it was completely gone, but I suppose this is the best thing I can hope for outside of that. It's just learning how to live with it to make it almost like it's not a thing anymore. So, I mean, it still is, but it's almost like it isn't. But yeah, that's how it's been. So, at least progress has been made, thank God. Next question. Technically 2 questions, but I sort of fused them together. What is your favorite show of the Winter 2016 season, and what is your most anticipated of the Spring 2016 season? I guess this is kind of late to answer this. The spring's already started. I kind of answered this before, but I think my favorite Winter 2016 show was Snow White with the Red Hair, season 2. I like Konosuba quite a bit, but as far as like a more serious show goes, like probably Snow White with the Red Hair. I liked it quite a bit. My most anticipated show of spring 2016 was Bungo Stray Dogs, because it was my my Enokido and Igarashi combo that I was really looking forward to. So I can answer that even though the spring season's already started. Next question. What do you consider to be the best looking anime? Shit. As far as like just art goes, probably whatever Ufotable puts out. Like that's the one thing I've said. Like Ufotable has good art. I just don't agree that they have good animation. Like I guess the animation isn't bad. It's just that it lacks any real spirit a lot of the time. Like there's an occasional good cut in, you know, Fate Stay Night and such, but like a lot of the time the fight choreography is just boring. Like it's not that engaging. Like it looks pretty solid, but a lot of the time it's just a bunch of fucking streaks. The times where you can actually see what's going on, it's actually pretty good, but otherwise it's just their art that's mainly pretty good. And even then they I remember there was the one screenshot where as Fate Stay Night aired, they fucked up one of the scenes so that like God, I don't know how to word it. It was one of the characters was like colored or drawn in a way that they weren't supposed to, so it looked like they were closer than they actually were, so they looked like a fucking giant. God, that was funny. So I guess that as far as animation goes, we have One Punch Man. Like that's probably been the top tier animation show in quite a while. Re:Zero's had some pretty fucking awesome animation cuts lately, and even in Udawara Ramono, the season that just aired, that White Fox did, there were some pretty sweet action cuts in that. So White Fox has some pretty solid animators going on, although I don't think they have a set team. I think a bunch of random people work at White Fox all the time, so it's hard to really say who does what, but I feel like animation's on a bit of an, how do I word this? Not uprising, a bit of a upgrade? I don't know. I feel like people are finally getting so used to how anime is being done nowadays digitally that they're able to do these kinds of things more easily. So things are just looking better and better. And then your second question is, what's your favorite video game? Star Fox 64. That was easy. Moving on. Why did you take down your Oreimo series review? It was good. Well, it wasn't a series review. It was mainly just me saying shit about Oreimo and then the people that liked it, so it was kind of garbage. Like, honestly, it wasn't very good. Maybe one day I should probably do an actual, like, good review of the show, maybe. But yeah, that was, like, it was supposed to be over the top and crazy, but it was too easy to take seriously, so that was a problem. So yeah, it's just down because I don't really care for it that much. Maybe I'll put it back up at some point just for the sake of, like, you know, it's a thing that I made, and I may as well keep it up even if I don't care for it that much. But I don't know. For now, it can stay down. Second question is, why do you have a problem with sexual relationships when it's basically two consenting adults having sex? Don't tell me because the offspring they have one can turn out defective, but can happen in normal relationships as well. You don't know how percentages work, do you? But that's not the point of your question. I don't. Like, if you actually, well, I guess that's also part of the reason I took the video down, is that it's kind of hard to tell based on that one, but I also did other videos on Oreimo that I have up still, which is the episode commentaries I did of the last 3 OVA episodes. But I also put out a bonus video, a 4th one, where I talked about Oreimo in general. I don't know if it was after the first or second OVA episode, but I went on a bit of a rant about how the content of Oreimo in and of itself, as far as the incestual relationship goes, in and of itself, as a story element, isn't a problem. The problem is how Oreimo tells it. Because it tells it in a way that isn't, like, good? I don't know. How do I put this? It's not told in an interesting or well thought out way. The way the incestuous relationship in Oreimo is told is in a very pandering way, where it's meant to appeal to people that have an incestuous fetish, as far as content, like taboo relationships and shit like that. People who like seeing things like that. It's written to appeal to those people. It's not told in a way that's genuine to make you actually, like, Oreimo's not going to convince anyone that, let me put it this way. If you are a proponent for, incestuous relationships being able to be told well as a story element in shows, Oreimo will literally convince nobody that does not think that way. Like, you have to already think that way going into Oreimo to like the show. Like, that's the only way. And that's mainly how it mainly has its huge rallying fan base, is the taboo crowd and stuff like that has rallied behind it. Which in a way is kind of a fascinating thing, but is, like I said, like, you're not going to convince anybody. Like, I mentioned it in the video, that extra video I mentioned, that I did my commentaries on, is, Yusuga no Sora actually did it better. Where the main character finds out that his sister likes him in a sexual way, and, the next day at school, he's, like, in the library looking up all kinds of books on incestuous relationships, as far as, like, the history of it, the biology of it. He's got, like, a bunch of books everywhere. His eyes are black as fuck. Like, he's got no goddamn sleep. Like, this is like, he's so, like, he doesn't know what to do. Like, that's portraying it well. Like, you, in order to do it well, you have to be aware of the social standing of incestuous relationships, and then you have to make it work in a storyline. Like, you just have to. You can't cut corners. Like, let me put it this way. Oreimo assumes that you're already fine with it. Like, it doesn't try and convince you that incestuous relationships are okay if you don't think that way. Like I said, it won't convince anybody, because it already assumes that you're fine with it. Whereas Yusuga no Sora, that scene is actually pretty good, and then it devolves into stupidity, but at least that scene in and of itself has some nice weight to it, you know? Like, it's actually pretty good. So that's what I mean. Like, I guess I could word it that way. As far as the rest of the things you argue about it for, you might want to do some actual research, I'll just put it that way. Next question. How did you get into anime, and what do you think of the anime industry at large? I got into anime because I actually had a long post on my blog. I still have a long post on my blog about it, if you want to read it. Actually, it'd be kind of hard to find. Maybe I should link it in the description. I don't know. I'll probably forget. That's the problem. I'll abridge the blog post I made, basically, about how I got into anime, which is, somewhat amusing, but also kind of, like, whatever. I thought it was funny at the time that I wrote it, but nowadays it's just like, whatever. Basically, I had a couple friends in elementary school, and one of them I didn't really talk to all that much. And so we weren't really friends all that much for a while. And then we shared a class in my sophomore year of high school. And, so because we shared that class, we were friends, we were talking to each other, you know, we had fun. And so I was talking to him a lot, obviously, back in the old instant messenger days, AIM, goddamn. So I was, well, I guess no one used AIM. They used, like, random other services that used the same protocol. Anyways, I was on one day, and I wanted to look up some educational material. So I went to a website to watch it, and, I thought I was watching said educational material, when actually it was the first episode of To Love Ru. And I watched it, and I didn't get the education I was looking for, but based on the first episode, I thought I was going to maybe get there at some point. So I watched the second episode, and I still didn't get the educational material I was looking for. So I linked it to my friend, and I said, haha, this is the worst educational material I've ever seen. There's no actual educational material in it. And he said, oh, that's not educational material. That's just an ecchi show. And I was like, what the fuck? There's more fucking anime than just Naruto? So that's when I started looking at some stuff, and I was like, oh shit. And like, I went to that website, and there were a couple other shows I could look up, and I started watching them. And I watched them here and there, like largely when I was bored and I just wanted something to do. I'd watch some shows, and, you know, I was largely just like, it was just kind of the thing where I'd watch a show and then I'd ask him, I'd be like, oh, what should I watch? And he's like, oh, watch this. And so I watched it. I was just watching a show here and there, basically, until I eventually went to a website and I stumbled upon Shakugan no Shana. And then I watched it, and then that's what started my love for anime. And that's when I started watching everything I could get my hands on, and I found out about seasonal shows as they aired, and how fans in the anime community would translate it as it came out and release, you know, videos for that so you could watch it that way. And now the community and such has evolved to the point that it is today. That's how I got into anime. And what do I think of the anime industry at large? I don't know. It's fine. I mean, everyone likes to say anime's dying all the time, but really it's not. Like, anime's fine. I always laugh when people say how, like, anime's dying, or, like, this season is the worst, and they're watching, like, 2 fucking shows, and it's like, oh, okay, sure. Because a lot of the, like, I've mentioned it before, but, you know, context and how in presentation are so important for whether shows are good or not that, you know, just going off a synopsis and flagging a show that way is so pointless. Like, I sometimes do it just because of how many shows I pick up, and I need to find any reason I can to, like, not pick up a quadrillion shows and then fall behind. But a lot of the shows that I've really, really liked ended up being shows that I didn't have the greatest hopes for when I picked them up. Like, you'd be surprised how, like, you know, how important it is to actually watch shows and give them a chance. Which isn't to say there aren't people that watch a lot of shows and still think anime's dying, but I just don't agree. I think the anime industry is doing fine. As far as, like, you know, payment of workers and all kinds of shit that's been happening in that regard with articles that have been coming out as far as, like, low paying wages and shit like that, that's a whole nother discussion. And we don't really have enough information to really say one way or the other, because studios apparently are so different in how they pay their animators and stuff like that, so hard to really say. But as far as, like, anime's pretty solid so far. I remember someone saying anime was dying as far as disc sales, but if I recall, I thought disc sales picked up this last year, so I don't really know. Yeah. Next question. Stream, how about stream? Have you ever thought about stream? I think about stream all the time, man. Next question. How many anime do you watch, or rather finish, per month? Estimates are enough. Well, that's just easy to go by how many shows I watch that are airing, because I don't really watch shows that have already aired anymore, because I'm so busy with airing shows. I pick up probably at least 20 shows each season. Admittedly, sometimes it drops under that once I start dropping shows, whether I don't like them or I'm just simply falling behind on so many shows that I have to drop certain shows so that I can, you know, pick back, you know, keep up with other stuff. So it's not that I don't really finish anything in a month, but over the course of the 3-month season, you know, I'm watching at least 20 shows. The problem is whenever a season airs and shows that air for like 24, 26 episodes, and I'm watching a lot of those, because then they carry over into the next season, and I pick up another 20 shows, and it's like, oh god, just kill me now, because there's like 35 shows I'm watching. It gets bad. So that sort of answers your question. What are your thoughts on anime-ish video game franchise Hyperdimension Neptunia? I don't remember what it was called, but the first one that came out on Steam when it first started coming out, played it for about 10 minutes. I wasn't very excited by it, and then it crashed. So that's my experience with Hyperdimension Neptunia. Don't really care for it. Moving on. What is your favorite anime and why? Shakugan no Shana. I'll eventually do a review on it when I feel I'm good and ready, or if it won the vote. Actually, quite a few people voted for Shana. It may have actually won the vote. But otherwise, I'll review it when I feel like I'm, you know, set and ready to do so. Second question. Do you have any major plans for your channel in the future? Not really. I just kind of put stuff out that I think is good, interesting. And I've started doing the podcast thing now with Lewis. I almost want to call it a talk show instead. That's how much I don't want to call it a podcast. I do that with Lewis now, so I guess that's kind of a major plan, just to put out more content for people to see, and it covers, you know, currently airing stuff, so at least it's like, you know, current. Yeah, next question. What kind of music do you like? I don't really have a favorite genre. These are getting easier. I can answer these questions quickly. I don't really have a favorite genre. I just kind of like whatever I like. I guess if I had to name one, like currently I like electronic music quite a bit, but I don't care for dubstep at all. I don't like the wub wub. Electronic music, my favorite genre is stuff like house and trance, like that kind of stuff, where it has like an actual kind of melody to it. That's my favorite electronic stuff. I don't know, the wub wub just kills it for me. It's just a bunch of, it feels like a random noises. It feels like someone, you know, it feels like someone getting a bunch of electronic noises and mapping them to each key on their keyboard, and then they just mash their face on the keyboard, and that's what dubstep sounds like to me. I don't care for the wub wub. The drop, as people call it, that's like my least favorite part of dubstep songs. So yeah, I like house and trance.